Why do talented salespeople who understand the game, people who've been doing this for years, still end up with empty pipelines? The answer is something Jeb Blount calls the 30-day rule. And understanding this rule changed how I think about time itself. Here's the rule. The prospecting you do in any 30-day period will pay off for the next 90 days. Let me say that again, because it's important. What you do today doesn't show up in your results today. It shows up 3 months from now. And what you didn't do 90 days ago, that's showing up in your results right now. I want you to picture this. Imagine you're a farmer, and today you plant a seed. You water it. You tend to the soil. But when you wake up tomorrow, there's no fruit. There's no harvest, just dirt. So you plant another seed and another, day after day, and still nothing visible. No green shoots, no sign that anything is working. Most people quit right there. They look at the dirt and think, this isn't working. I'm wasting my time. But the farmer knows something they don't. The harvest doesn't come the day after you plant. It comes months later. And if you stop planting because you don't see immediate results, you guarantee that 3 months from now, you'll have nothing to harvest. That gap between the seed and the harvest is where most salespeople lose faith. They don't see green shoots, so they stop planting. And they wonder why their pipeline is empty. This is why sales feels so confusing sometimes. This is why you can be working hard and see nothing. This is why you can slack off and things still seem fine for a while. There's a delay, there's a lag, a gap between action and consequences that's just long enough to mess with your head. Let me tell you about Greg. Greg is a sales pro, good at his job, experienced, knows the product, knows the market. And in early March, Greg calls Jeb because he's frustrated. Nothing's closing. Deals are stalling. Prospects are going dark. He's doing everything he knows how to do, but the results aren't there. And Greg thinks he has a closing problem. He thinks something's wrong with his technique. Maybe his pitch needs work. Maybe he needs to handle objections better. Maybe the market has shifted. But Jeb asks him one question, just one. What are you doing in December? What were you doing in December? And Greg goes quiet because he knows the answer. He knows exactly what he was doing in December. Nothing. Well, not nothing, but not prospecting. It was the holidays. Things were slow. Prospects weren't picking up the phone anyway. So he told himself he'd take a break. He told himself January would be a better time to ramp back up. He told himself he'd earned a little rest after a busy year. And now, 90 days later, he's paying the price. The March slump isn't a closing problem. It's not a technical problem. It's not a market problem. It's a December prospecting problem. The pipeline he should have built in December. That's the pipeline he needed in March. And it didn't exist because he didn't build it. This is the 30-day rule in action. And it's brutal because it's invisible. When you skip prospecting today, nothing bad happens today. You don't get punished immediately. The sky doesn't fall. The manager doesn't yell at you. In fact, you might feel relieved. You might even feel smart. See, I didn't need to make those calls. Everything's fine. But everything's not fine. The bill is just delayed. It's coming. And when it arrives in 60 days, in 90 days, you won't connect it to the decisions you made back then. You'll think something new went wrong. You'll think it's about what you're doing now. But it's not. It's about what you didn't do then. I'll live this. I told you the story earlier about my time at Movati Athletics. But let me go deeper. Let me tell you what it actually felt like. I'm 20 years old. I've been crushing it. Best numbers in the gym. People are asking me for advice. I'm feeling invincible. And I take my foot off the gas. Just for a little while. Just to catch my breath. A few weeks go by. things still seem fine. The deals I'd already set up are closing. The momentum is carrying me. And I'm thinking, man, this is easy. I don't know why everyone makes such a big deal about prospecting. I'm doing great without it. Then the momentum runs out. And it doesn't run out slowly. It runs out all at once. 1 week I'm fine. The next week I look at the calendar and there's almost nothing there. And I remember this feeling, this cold sinking feeling in my chest, like I'd been caught, like I'd been exposed, like the thing I'd been pretending wasn't happening had finally caught up with me. I started scrambling, started trying to book appointments, started reaching out to people I should have called weeks ago. But it was too late. The hole was too deep. I couldn't fill it fast enough. And I had to sit there day after day watching the numbers drop, watching other people close deals while I had no one to talk to, watching my confidence crumble. The worst part, I didn't understand why. I thought I'd done something wrong recently. I thought maybe I'd lost my touch. I started questioning everything, my pitch, my approach, my ability. Maybe I just got lucky before. Maybe I'm not actually good at this. And that doubt is poison, because when you don't trust yourself, it shows. It leaks into every conversation, and it makes the universal law of need even worse. Now, you're not just desperate for sales. You're desperate to prove you're still capable. And that desperation drives people away even faster. It took me a long time to connect the dots, to realize that my March crisis was created by my January vacation, to understand that the lag between prospecting and results is where most salespeople get lost. They're always responding to yesterday's weather. They're always reacting instead of creating. They're always one step behind because they don't understand how time actually works in sales. Here's what I want you to understand. When you're having a great month, that's not because of what you're doing now. That's because of what you did 60 to 90 days ago. And when you're having a terrible month, same thing. The results you're experiencing today are the harvest from seeds you planted or didn't plant months ago. This changes everything because it means you can't wait until you need opportunities to start creating them. By then, it's too late. The only way to ensure you always have a full pipeline is to prospect when you don't need to prospect when things are going well, to prospect especially when things are going well, because that's when you're most tempted to ease off. That's when the 30-day rule is setting its trap. Jeb tells his own version of the story in his book. Early in his career, he had a monster quarter, closed tons of business, felt like a superstar, and then he let himself get buried in administrative work, setting up the new accounts, handling customer issues, all the stuff that comes after the sale. Important stuff, sure, but not prospecting. 90 days later, he woke up to an empty pipeline. His manager was furious. He was depressed. He felt like a total failure. He went from hero to zero in what felt like overnight. But it wasn't overnight. It was a slow erosion that he couldn't see until it was too late. His manager gave him one piece of advice. Stop digging. Get on the phone. Start prospecting now. And Jeb did. He forced himself, even though he was depressed, even though he felt like nothing would work, even though every fiber of his being wanted to hide. He picked up the phone and started dialing. The first few days were brutal. Nothing was working. He was adding maybe one opportunity per day. It felt hopeless, but he kept going day after day, call after call, and slowly, the pipeline started to fill. His confidence started to return. His conversations started to improve. And by the end of that quarter, he wasn't just back on track. He was the #1 sales rep in the region. 0 to hero. Not because of talent, not because of luck, because he understood that when you're in a hole, the first rule is to stop digging and start climbing. And climbing means prospecting. Always prospecting, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. So here's the action from this first lesson. Write this down somewhere. You'll see it every day. Put it on a sticky note. Make it your phone wallpaper. Tattoo it on your brain. What I do today shows up 90 days from now. When you feel like skipping prospecting because you're busy, remember this. When you feel like taking a break because things are going well, remember this. When you tell yourself you'll ramp it up next month, remember this. The bill always comes due. The only question is whether you'll be ready for it. The salespeople who never have slumps, they're not luckier than you. They're not more talented than you. They're just more consistent. They prospect more when it's easy, and they prospect when it's hard. They prospect when they're winning, and they prospect when they're losing. They understand that the 30-day rule doesn't take days off, and neither can they. But here's the thing. Even when you understand the 30-day rule, even when you know you should be prospecting every day, there's something else going on. Something that's working against you. Something that makes you think you're being productive when you're actually not. And that's what we need to talk about next.
Hey, thanks for checking out this clip from the Sales Evolution Lab podcast. If you found value in this lesson, be sure to hit subscribe to evolve for the future of selling. And if you want the full breakdown, the deeper stories, the practical toolkit, check out the full episode. Just click the video on the screen, and I'll see you there.